FNR, Football Nation Radio.
Puts no call! Score!
Salamidi for Cole. Cole on the run. Shoots. 2-0.
Lazanovsky with the free kick. Launches a rocket! Trimboli, what vision! Blasts.
Yes!
That's it!
Miljevic.
Beautiful ball! Here's Bozanic. They might have won it!
The Pioneers with George Donikian and George Kotsanis on FNR, Football Nation Radio.
Yes, that time of the week, the Pioneers, and our Pioneer tonight certainly had it. He had it in spades. A very special player, a midfield maestro who loved to score goals from distance, and he loved to tackle too. Welcome to George Kotsanis. You've brought the King in.
I brought the original King Kenny in, Georgie.
King Kenny from Heidelberg. We found another score. So we've got a special algorithm this on the latest edition of FNR's football app, and what it does, it helps to translate everything that comes out of that particular microphone. Now, King Kenny, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Yasu.
Yes, very
George.
good, you see.
George.
Translates everything in Greek. Born in Scotland in the Olympic year, 1956.
56, yes.
The 17th of May.
17th of May, yes.
So belated happy birthday.
Thank you very much. A Taurian.
A Taurian.
Very stubborn.
Taurian. Some would say a lot of bull.
Exactly. But it's a pleasure to be here tonight. I'm just looking forward to a nice relaxing hour.
Now, Georgie's got so much dope on here. We should add that G1 and G2 were at Olympic Village only last night for the FFA Cup game between Charlestown and Heidelberg, and we didn't see much of the game, but by golly, did we learn a lot about the King.
We learned a lot about a few players, including the King.
And Jimmy gave us a bit of dope. Mr. Campbell.
It's called dirt, George. I don't know.
Oh, sorry, dirt.
You've been in show business too long with your using the word dope.
Clearly. I saw a little bit of special smoke in the
That was
very
mist.
heavy air.
That was mist.
That was heavy dew, was
Yes,
it?
The Scotch mist.
Scotch mist it was.
Okay, well, every time I walked through some of it, it seemed like there was a log on fire. So, okay, I'll believe whatever you tell me, Kotsanis.
Done.
So, come on, get into this. Let's take us way back and discover how in heaven's name a Scotsman ends up in Australia.
I know how they end up here.
Oh, okay.
But I want to know your very first football memory.
First football memory, obviously my father played part-time football in Scotland, played for Kilmarnock and Clyde, and my grandfather played junior football, obviously way back in the 20s. And I suppose football, because in Scotland that's the way of life, and you just had a ball and just played sort of thing. So I was fortunate to go to school and obviously represent my local county, Ayrshire, and also got to the second last Scotland schoolboys trial as such. Obviously just missed out, but playing at that level, and also I played in the 15 team called Prestwick Star, who were affiliated to Kilmarnock, and obviously when you play at that level, there are a lot of scouts come to watch the games and so forth, and obviously I was fortunate that I think Tottenham were interested in a couple of others, and also Ipswich Town. So, but the irony of it all is in my bedroom, when I was at that age, obviously fairly young, I had all these photographs of different players and teams and so forth, and just one of those kind of weird incidents. Above my bed was a photograph of Ipswich Town, where I didn't even know where Ipswich was. Yeah, obviously found it was
Just
in
out of a magazine like Shoot or the
Shoot.
equivalent.
I used to
So
take
your
them out.
apprenticeship was Ipswich Town.
Ipswich Town, so obviously went down in trial with another a boy called George Burley, who obviously managed Scotland and played for, I think he played 600 or 700 games for Ipswich Town and managed them as well. So
600 or 700 more than you.
exactly.
Yeah.
So just one of these situations.
Where was your first professional stint?
Well, I was an apprentice down at Ipswich, so
Okay.
I got offered a contract. What happened was we went down, and I think we stayed for a week or maybe 10 days, and obviously there's different trial games, and I was fortunate that Bobby Robson, who was the manager at the time, and he said, look, we want to offer you
Not just anybody.
an
The
apprenticeship.
legendary Bobby
Robson. So yeah, it was good, and we So went down. I had just turned 15. It was in, obviously May. I went down in July, and that was the kind of start of the apprenticeship. So it was interesting, the fact that when I was there as an apprentice, the previous apprentices, they used to have to go and paint the stands and all sorts of stuff. We still had to
boot studders.
We had to clean the boots. We had wash the floors and all sorts of stuff. So that's just the way it was. Discipline is exactly right. So, but it was successful down there. We had obviously we won the FE Youth Cup the second year I was in there. So and a lot of the players obviously went on to play for Ipswich and other teams and also played international. So it was great times and obviously great memories.
So when you moved from home, young boy, 15, you moved into digs. Explain that for some of the younger viewers, what that's about.
Well, obviously, what they try to do is they try to put you in with a landlady, so they're going to look after you, and it's like feeling as if you're back home, the home cooked meals and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a little mentorship.
Yeah, sort of thing. What Ipswich, and I mentioned to George just before the show, what Ipswich tried to do at one stage was Coventry they had a successful programme where they put most of the apprentices into one house and had a couple look after them. Ipswich tried that, but unfortunately it kind of backfired. So.
Too many rowdy types.
Well, not so much that. I think
Spill the beans, come on.
Well, the catalyst was that Eric Gates, after we'd had food, the money they were receiving, they should be given a steak and some really good meals. We're getting things like minced potatoes and things that weren't soup, stuff like that.
So they were ripping the club off, weren't they?
Basically, and then what happened was that, as I say, the catalyst was that Eric Gates going down to KFC and coming up with a big bucket of chicken and sitting. So that was kind of the straw broke the camel's back. So anyway, that kind of dispelled. So we went back into digs. So the landlady actually, for I think it was probably about 8 or 9 months, I actually stayed with one of the players, an Irish, Brian Hamilton, and his wife. So that was
like a boarder.
It was a boarder, and it was really good because he obviously took me into the ground and training and so forth. So it saved me getting buses and stuff like that.
And no Colonel.
No
KFC.
No KFC.
No KFC.
No.
It wasn't KFC in those days.
No,
it was Colonel Sanders.
Colonel Sanders, that's right, it was,
Yes.
exactly. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it was, as I say, we had success. As I say, we won the FE Youth Cup, and we actually came. The two major junior competitions were the FE Youth Cup, obviously, and the Southern Junior Floodlight Cup, which we got to the final, and we played Aston Villa, and we played at Villa Park, and I was fortunate, and it was actually my birthday, my 17th birthday, and I actually scored the winning goal, but unfortunately the return game at Portman Road we lost, so we just had the one trophy which was the main trophy as such.
You played for Scotland Youth,
I didn't play for Scotland Youth, unfortunately. No,
No?
I didn't actually manage to get to those kind of dizzy heights, so probably could still play for them there, I think, maybe. But
So out of that apprentice, or out of that young youth team,
Yep.
where there was quite obviously you were an apprentice, how many of those boys ended up getting senior contracts?
Senior contracts, I think it was about 7 or 8 players. So out of the team of say 12, and again, previous to that, most teams, it was obviously English First Division, the early 70s. Most teams would have, if they signed 2 or 3 players, they were doing extremely well. But to sign 8 players, and I suppose the success that the team had was kind of my downfall, because obviously I missed out. And I can vividly remember going into Bobby Robson's office and me sitting down, and I think the first question he said to me was, so the clubs in your area, well obviously Ayrshire, there's only 2 clubs, it's Kilmarnock and Ayr. So I kind of knew the kind of writing was on the wall, so it was kind of shattering, because you want to succeed, you want to become a professional. So what actually happened, what transpired is that I signed with Scunthorpe United, because a chap called Ron Bradley was the manager there, who had played with Bobby Robson at West Brom. So I went up there and I signed professional, and did a couple of games in the reserves and so forth, and then I managed to break into the first team. And I think my first game at Scunthorpe was against Reading, and I did fairly well, and I got quite a good write-up and so forth. And then the second game we played was a League Cup game, and it just happened to be against Manchester City at Main Road. So that was kind of just one of those scenarios. It just was not say dreams come true, but it was an exciting time. Unfortunately, the game, it didn't pan out as it should have, because we were 4th division, they were 1st, and it was we lost 5-0. And but it was just an experience.
Tell us your favourite memory from that game.
Before that,
Sorry.
what did a young professional earn in that particular time? Just to give us some perspective.
When I was an apprentice, I think the first year I got £7, and then the second year, because I actually found my actual contract, which I found the contract, and it's, I think £7, then £8 the following, and then £9. And then I think they contributed to your digs, so it was like £6 to the digs. So, but you know,
but it's all relative.
It's all relative.
What was the weekly wage? Can you remember? Because the average punter, not the footballer. Would have been £4 or £5.
A lot less than that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's as you say, it's all relative at the actual time. So,
Yeah.
but it's but you know, it's something you would. If I got the time to do again, obviously you would do certain things different. But it's again, you just need that opportunity, and somebody just needs to open the door and let you in.
My first paid gig playing for Analytic, $5.
So,
Very special. I felt very, very good.
Yeah.
That went a long way too, by the way.
And did the Greek club paid that, or was that just a promise of $5? Because Greek clubs are notorious for promising.
Sorry, Kenny, cash.
Cash.
Yeah,
Ooh,
cash
cash.
money.
In the hand.
I say you got it.
Not a brown envelope, no.
No.
But yeah, so
Not for one note.
Alright, just going back to Main Road.
So yeah, Main Road. Obviously, the highlight of the night was I obviously was playing in midfield, and I probably should go back just a step before that. When obviously I went to Ipswich. Before I went to Ipswich, I was actually a striker. You know, scored quite a few goals, and obviously enjoyed doing that. And when you went down, to a certain extent, you're kind of like a big fish in a little pond up in Scotland. Then I got down to Ipswich, and all of a sudden it's like, you know, you're like a minnow. You know, anyway, I got down there, and then I got handed. I think it was the first trial game we had. I got handed number 10. You're playing midfield. I go, no, you know, I'm a striker.
It's a new system.
I'm a striker. I'm a midfield. So, but the one thing that happened in one of the games I can again remember quite clearly was 25 yards out, I turned and hit a shot and it hit the bar, and it's one of those things where you say to yourself, that might have just been the catalyst to actually get an apprenticeship. Maybe not, but just it could have well been. So anyway, so getting back to the Manchester City scenario, and so I'm playing in midfield, and obviously I'm playing against one of England's number one players, Colin Bell. So I'm sure people would remember Colin Bell, and he was known as Nijinsky because he never stopped running and so forth. And anyway, I managed to get this photograph, which
I'll put it up online later. Yeah.
So when I put it, it's actually the ball, myself, and Colin Bell behind me, and it's the only time in the night, and I can guarantee that actually happened.
That's not photoshopped.
No, because what I was doing, I was just going, wherever the ball, don't forget the ball, just concentrate where he is. So, but it was an experience that I had. So,
and there was another bloke, RM.
Yeah, well, the captain of Man City that night was Rodney Marsh, who, he was
super excitement machine.
Well, he's just one of those guys, and that era was just sensational. And anyway, all he wanted to do that night was just nutmeg people. That was his thing. For
What's wrong with that?
Well, George Best did it too.
Not saying that, yeah. So, but the thing again, Ipswich was being an apprentice, and when teams come, teams obviously, because Ipswich were doing pretty well in Europe, played Real Madrid and stuff like that there, and obviously all the Manchester United and Newcastle, Leicester, all these teams, and you were sitting waiting to go and clean the dressing room. One story I would very quickly mention was Derby County. So what we used to do as apprentices, we used to leave like autograph books on the table for the opposing team, get them to sign it. So anyway, they were playing, I think it was a midweek game, and I've gone in, I've left the book, no signatures, nothing there. So I've come in a bit disconsolate. So what do I do? And obviously next thing there's Brian Clough, and he go, so what's wrong? I said, oh look, I've just left the book just to get the guys to sign it. Nobody signed. This is, I still can remember, he opened the door, and Roy McFarlane was walking up the pathway to go to. He went, Roy comes back, he says, take that upstairs, get every single one of them to sign that. Now, I don't even know what the book is. I think it's back in Scotland somewhere, but it just shows you that, again, the type of individual, Brian Clough was. So.
He was one of a kind.
No, he was fantastic.
Speaking of one of a kind, I just want to go back to that meeting with Bobby.
Yep.
Right, because obviously he was a senior coach, so you didn't have a lot of day-to-day with him, but you would have come across each other, and he was the one that called you in to let you go.
Yeah, of course.
At the time, now in retrospect, we all love him, right? But at times when we're dealing with managers and players and whatever, the feelings aren't quite
Of course, yeah.
right, especially if they're letting you go.
Yes.
Right? But what was he like as the senior coach or senior manager? And then how was it? How did you, when you left that meeting, what was your impression of him then? And allowing for your instinct as well.
Oh yeah, well I think that obviously because he had played at a high level, England and so forth, and I think his main attribute was he was a very good, a man managing situation. He was very good at reading individual players. He had some good support staff around. And the first team coach was a guy called Cyril Lee, the Welsh guy. So he was good in that respect. He had the backing of the players, and obviously the scouting system at that time, that was their big push, and obviously it proved it was rewards there because they won the FA Youth Cup to actually have a very solid youth system. And I think what happened after that is that people started to look at Ipswich as, you know, a grounding, and people wanted to go there. Whereas they might pick, say, Liverpool or Manchester United, but to actually break through was a lot harder. Whereas maybe Ipswich, maybe not so much. So, but you know, Robson was you know, pretty straightforward, and I think he could obviously had gained the respect of the players, and I think that's probably one of the biggest things, biggest attributes.
Tremendous career. Tremendous
Outstanding career.
And
Oh,
that's one of the best, probably.
Yep.
One of the best British coaches and personalities
Yeah.
in stone.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
and on the back of that youth team, that senior team, 4 or 5 years later, the Ipswich Town team
Yeah.
was one of the super sides
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
of any era,
Yeah,
let
yeah.
alone
Yeah.
just of that time.
I used to watch Match of the Day, and they featured regularly.
Yeah, I think also, you know, especially when they get the two Dutch boys and Murid and Tyson, you know, once they get those two, and that kind of, the puzzle wasn't
They were the conduit
complete.
of
They
everything.
were just,
I
oh
said.
yeah, and they just, and obviously you had like guys like obviously George Burley who had played with and gone to Ipswich with, like Johnny Walk, who had broken through, and you know, he's still, I think he's connected still to the club. He does the corpus.
Yes, that's
in
right.
there, so
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
so.
And you had Eric Gates, who was in the same youth
Gates,
team
yeah.
as you,
That's
and
right,
then they
yeah.
added Brazil, Mariner, Osman,
All those guys,
Butcher.
that's right, Butcher as well.
Yeah.
So I think, as I said before, it attracted, you know, it's like success attracts more people, want to be part of the success. So that was the biggest thing. So
We're going to take a break. We're talking to the King,
King Kenny,
Kenny Taylor.
the original King Kenny.
The original one. For those of you who are A-League fans, and you got very excited last year when you heard about young King Kenny at Heidelberg, well, he's still part of the greater fabric of the club, but this particular man in the
Version
studio
1.
with us is the original, and some would say the best, but we'll let him tell us that. And G2, you've got some fantastic dirt that you're going to dig up. Is that right?
Not dope, dude.
This is right.
Yeah.
Football Nation Radio, the pioneers with G1 and G2.
Welcome back to evenings at Football Nation Radio. You're on the pioneers of G1 and G2, and our special guest, King Kenny, the original. Now, Scunthorpe United, you're a fully fledged professional. Didn't quite.
didn't pan out.
Earning a
Yeah.
huge amount of money, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what actually happened there, obviously, is Ron Bradley, the manager, after the Manchester City game, the team didn't do so well, so obviously he was under pressure, he got sacked, new coach came in, and I think they let something like 12 players go, free transfers, and obviously I was one of those, so ended up going back up to Scotland, and actually had to get a job, which was, ended up had to get a job, a real job, and actually was a postman, so I was a postman for probably about just over 12 months, and I just played junior football with the local team, Dawson Winton Rovers, who ironically my grandfather played for in the 20s, so it was kind of coming full circle from a family perspective, so and that was it. So obviously played there for say probably about a year and a half, and then just going along with business, and then all of a sudden playing against the team. I remember Team B, and just a normal league game, and just Saturday, and my wife, now Barbara, obviously were going out at the time, and Saturday night, just getting ready, all of a sudden knocking the door. The dad says, "Oh, there's somebody at the front door."
So no text,
No,
no phone call,
no
so
phone
knock
call.
on the door.
Knock on the door.
Love it.
The dad goes, "Oh, there's some man here to see you." Oh, okay, that sounds quite interesting. So, and
Saturday
obviously
night?
it was Jim Adam. So
The late great Jim Adams.
So exactly. So he obviously explained what was happening in Australia, and prior to that, I had thoughts of maybe coming to, or actually going to New Zealand. Nelson United, I was interested there to go there, and then also a very famous club in Melbourne, Slavia.
Yeah.
But obviously Jim Adam came and explained what was happening with Fitzroy United at the time.
How did he sell it to?
He just said the Phillips League was starting.
Yeah.
This is the first national professional
In
league
1977,
down under.
down under. So he obviously was on a scouting mission to try and get players, and obviously being a Scot, obviously wants more Scottish players to. And I think at the time, obviously Heidelberg, which it is now, which Fitzroy was before, had some great Scottish players like the Bannons, Vince and Paddy, George Gillan, Gibson. There's a couple of others, John Kennedy. So they knew that the Scottish would obviously.
It was tried and tested formula, wasn't it? For
Yeah,
Oh,
Fitzroy?
yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
Scots. I can remember in Sydney at the Panhellenic, Jimmy Pearson and Jimmy Logan,
Oh, yeah.
great boys, and played with ferocity
Yeah,
and,
that's right.
and skill.
Yes.
And the crowds warmed to them
Oh, yes.
and loved them.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's obviously he kind of sold the league starting and very exciting times and so forth. National, in fact, which I think it was the first national sport league.
Yeah,
Yes,
it was
absolutely.
leading
Leading.
the way. It was
Yes.
fantastic.
So yeah, obviously I quite chat with my mum and dad. They just said go. That's it. Just
So
go.
you're 20 years old?
I was actually 20. Yeah,
Yeah.
20 when I arrived.
And you were married to Barbara?
No, I didn't. I actually get married in Melbourne. I get married in Melbourne,
Fantastic.
and I had obviously a very small wedding. It was obviously I think it was about 10 people at my wedding, and obviously that was in '78. We had Jim Marner was there, and his wife Audrey was there, and obviously Jim Campbell and Veronica.
Cheerio to Jim, he'll be listening in Scotland, I'm sure.
Yes, Jim. Yes, he does. He listens to them all. He's listened
Yeah.
to all the shows, and I think he
He's a
enjoys it.
regular on FNR, isn't he?
Yes, he does. I think he kind of misses Australia. He misses also, I think, all the guys in the club, and he still keeps in touch, which is great.
Well, I watched you guys in action last night, and I can understand what he misses out on.
Well, yeah,
The
but
good company, the great
Yeah.
storytelling, and some of the brown ale.
The
Yeah.
camaraderie.
Yeah,
exactly.
Sensational. Yeah.
yeah. So the some of the situations. So come over and.
So what were your first thoughts? You've come into a new semi-professional national league. It's been sold to you. You've come halfway across the world.
Yeah.
You've been a professional. You've been at Ipswich. You've
Yeah.
played at Scunthorpe.
Yeah.
First impressions?
And he hasn't heard of Theo Solomides yet.
Yet. Not yet.
Right,
Oh.
just remember that.
That's
Not
right.
yet.
So, Nick Rakavala. So, anyway, so
First impressions?
first impressions. Well, obviously, sunburned country, a lovely country. But obviously, as I found out,
No kangaroos.
No kangaroos. Come from the airport, and actually didn't have a place to stay, and actually was put up in a lovely establishment called the Majestic Hotel in Fitzroy.
Fitzroy
Fitzroy
Street,
sorry,
St
St
Kilda.
Kilda, exactly.
Sensational.
Which was really nice, and
The old red light district, right?
exactly. So, and I think the first 2 or 3 weeks, actually, my dinner consisted of probably 2 hamburgers and just a carton of milk, because and then obviously
Great hamburgers, though.
well, beautiful. As I stepped out of the Majestic, I was getting accosted by obviously ladies of the night. So I did resist.
That wouldn't
obviously.
have pleased Barbara in any way, shape.
No, she was still had to come on the scene as yet. But anyway, I didn't.
Okay, right.
I resisted. Of
course you did.
But no, one of the first impressions was coming down. Obviously, before you get into Fitzroy Street, you've got the Fitzroy Oval.
Oh, the old Junction Oval.
Junction
yeah.
Oval, which
Yeah.
is okay. This stadium looks lovely.
Mm.
Well, obviously, it wasn't the stadium we were going to play in.
Clearly not. Clearly not.
Yeah.
But obviously, the home for
It was earmarked for someone else.
exactly. Obviously the Olympic Park is a great venue. Even the dog track next door was a good venue for Heidelberg as well. So,
What about Middle Park? Did you have any memories of Middle Park when you ran into it?
yes, well, I suppose one of the memories I do have of Middle
You
Park.
did well there, didn't you?
I did very well, exactly. With in '79, obviously, I'd gone back. My oldest son Andrew, was born in Scotland, in Greenock, which that's my wife's from, and so she had gone back, and I was obviously going back, and that was it, sort of thing. I think one of the last games was against Hellas at Middle Park, and because I'm one of these guys, I just pick programs up and stuff. So anyway, I've got the program. I'm not in the program. I'm not mentioned.
Number 7's missing in
Number
the list.
7's missing.
I love that.
But in the third minute of the game, I scored the winning goal. So it's interesting exactly against the
old enemy.
The old enemy. So, and I suppose I've been fortunate in the journey that actually against Hellas, I have scored a few kind of vital goals against them. So, but yeah, it's interesting time.
So you went home and you were going to stay home.
Yes.
All
Yep.
right. What made you change your mind then?
It was December in Scotland, which obviously people know the Northern
It's a bit
Hemisphere.
crisp.
Bit
Bit
fresh.
crisp, yes. I got a phone call from Jim Mingopoulos, and I think when I went back initially, I had visions of still playing professional football player, and I went different trials. Actually went to Dundee United for a week, and was under the tutelage of Walter Smith,
Yep.
who was the reserve player coach. I think I played a practice game. Anyway, what happened was a phone call from Jim Mingopoulos. First thing he says is, "What's the weather like?" "Yeah, it's pretty cold." "What's it like in Australia?" "Oh, it's beautiful sunshine."
Yeah,
and,
30 degrees.
Exactly. So, and I think obviously, I wasn't working. So in a situation where we just made a decision, obviously I got offered quite a substantial amount of money to come back. So I thought, well, we may as well come back and just, it was, when we came initially, it was like, it's just a 2-year contract. Not to say it's a holiday, but just we'll see how it goes. Now, 41 years later, still here. So, but it was.
Well, you did meet so many good Australian types, like Jimmy Campbell.
Yeah, that's right. Jimmy Campbell, yeah.
Yeah, David Campbell, yeah.
Yeah. I think
Jimmy Campbell,
with
that's right.
especially with Jimmy, obviously I mentioned quite a few, Jim O'Reilly and a few others, and obviously when I came to Australia first, I met up with Bobby Probin at the airport, and I'd never met with Bobby before. Bobby was played for Clydebank, but there was also a very famous Bob Proven that played for Rangers, and I actually thought that's who it was, but obviously it wasn't. And Bobby and obviously Brendy's wife, I met them at the airport with the 3 kids, Colin, Lee and Claire. So that was the journey had started, sort of thing. So,
And you're still close friends now, aren't you?
oh yeah, as I say, when we came over, that was our family. We didn't have any other external family, so we basically, as a team, played together and then obviously socialised together. So and it's still today. Jimmy Campbell and Veronica, Jimmy Riley, Nan, still pretty close friends.
And you found yourself working at the great company ADIDAS.
Yes.
Worked your way through the.
How did you end up in ADIDAS?
Well, ADIDAS. Well,
What, did you run into Jimmy Tansey or something, did you?
well, actually, so Jimmy Campbell and George Campbell were working there, and
They were employed there.
they were working in the warehouse. No, they were employed there, exactly.
They were
Well,
working there.
they went in and
Loosely.
and they actually
loosely.
got a wage packet, which was
Yes, that's
fantastic
what I
as
meant,
well, bonus. So I got a job just as a kind of casual as such, and I actually drove the van. Drove the van from the factory, clothing factory, and also the footwear factory. And what actually happened was that the driver had gone on holiday for sort of 4 or 5 weeks, so I got that particular job. And then what happened in the interim period was that George Campbell left and joined RACV, so I basically got the full-time job. So what's happened within ADIDAS, I was there 20 years, was I was in the warehouse. Jimmy Campbell was the supervisor. Jimmy Campbell went to sales. I became the supervisor. Jimmy Campbell became the sales manager. I come into sales. So we basically followed our paths, I think so.
Shadow.
So
The Shadow.
and I'm his
That was your nickname,
and I'm
The
his taxi,
Shadow.
and I'm his taxi driver as of last night. No, but we're still obviously very close.
By the way, you holiday together, don't you?
So
occasionally?
we do, yes. We've been to.
And there's one holiday that
I'm sure this is Port Douglas.
it may well be. You're going to tell the story.
Yes. Well, what happened was obviously
You're very lucky, or we're very lucky that you're here.
exact. Well,
We're thanking Jimmy Campbell, apparently.
oh no, oh I know the one. Yes.
Ah,
yes.
yeah.
You're talking border town. Yes.
Telling you yes to Border Town.
Just to let everybody know, I'm sure most people would know that obviously I come from a little place called Salcoats in Ayrshire, which is like a seaside resort, and they've got the bathing pool and swimming pool and so forth. Well, I can't swim. Now, to make matters worse, at home I've actually got a big swimming pool at my back door.
Why?
Exactly
Because you
right.
can. Yeah.
That's for
Okay.
Barbara. No, it's for Barbara.
Well, exactly right.
Yes,
So
and
for everybody,
yeah.
for everybody else's enjoyment. So anyway, we've gone on holiday. There was obviously Jim, Veronica, and Calista, Jim's eldest daughter, and obviously myself, Barbara, and Andrew. So we're driving up. Oh, no, before that, sorry, we're going through to Border Town. And we're staying all night. It was really warm.
This is
mid-30s.
South Australia, Victoria, yes.
South Australia border. So
where Prime Minister Bob Hawke was born.
That's correct, yes.
Bordertown.
Bordertown, right. So anyway, so we've got there and it was really hot, so we'll stay the night, overnight, before we go through to Adelaide. So we've got the swimming pool, and obviously you've got a deep end and a shallow end. And at that stage, my wife smoked, and also Veronica, Jim's wife, smoked as well. So anyway, we're going to jump in the pool, me thinking it's the shallow end. No, it's deep end. So all I can remember, obviously I'm still alive to tell the tale.
Yeah.
I've looked up there and all I can see is both Veronica and Barb with their cigarettes, just looking, shaking their heads. And then Jimmy just come across, luckily, I think he
tweaked.
He kicked me to the side, luckily, and obviously, to tell the tale. But he saved my life.
Jimmy saved your life.
Okay, now that we've got the Bordertown out of the way, tell me about the Port Douglas one.
Well, the Port Douglas one is probably more related to Jimmy, and I'm sure if Jimmy comes onto the show later, he'll elaborate the story. Jimmy, obviously, we got to the airport. It was just the four of us going up for a holiday, and he was having problems with the back of his neck. Anyway, we've gone up there, we've hired the car, got to Cairns, hired the car, travelled up to Port Douglas. We're driving away, and I'm going round the bends and so forth, and Jimmy's in the back. Oh, every kind of movement was really quite sore. Anyway, we've gone and had the holiday, obviously plenty of drink and good times. We actually went to play golf, believe it or not. Anyway, what transpired was that afterwards Jimmy came back and found he'd broke his neck, so which was incredible. And
Was that diving into the pool to save you?
no, no, it was just one of those scenarios.
That's incredible.
And at one stage, I think we went to the local market, and I'm sure there was like an acupuncture stand, and I think Veronica had said, "Look, Jim, why don't you just get some acupuncture?"
Oh,
I think it might have been a bad idea, but obviously Jimmy's obviously well now, so it's got through all that drama.
Let's take you back to ADIDAS.
Yep.
Right. I'm reliably informed that you didn't do just well. You did a little bit better than that. You were, I think, Salesman of the Year.
Well, yeah, it was actually a bilingual salesman of the year. and
we should explain there's a reason for this, because you just kept writing and writing and writing.
Well, not so much that, just all the stock used to keep coming to people's doors and people's shops, and just say, did I order that? Yes, you did order it. There's your signature. So no, one of the sports scene, which was a buying group, gave me the award. I think it was Victorian Sales of the Year, and I get another one, I think, with Rebel Sports as well. So those times were really good, and I really enjoyed the main things I enjoyed about Adidas was I enjoyed the product, loved the product, I loved my customers. Sometimes the office politics kind of overtook a few things. So anyway, 20 years I was there, so must have been doing something right.
What do you make of the advancements in the game, or the way the game and the boots, for example, have changed? You remember boots in your day?
Oh yeah.
And did you wear the cut-down version, or did you wear the ones over the ankles?
He's not that old.
No.
No, I'm talking about he used to love tackling. He used to slide in there and make sure that he did his bit for the team.
Yeah, you always got to try and connect with the ball first, and then the player.
That helps.
But sometimes it might have been the player in the ball.
Ooh.
Obviously, Copa Mundial is a pair of football boots. Obviously, it's renowned in the marketplace, and still is. But you look at the boots now; they're all lightweight and so forth. So, but
I think they contribute to some of the injuries we're seeing.
They're possibly, they're probably not as sturdy as probably they could well be. So, but yeah, the boots nowadays, again, it's interesting now the evolvement of colour. You get even the AFL.
Did you wear white boots?
No, I don't think I've worn one. I think I've worn.
Did Jimmy wear white boots?
Oh, no. But I remember AFL. I remember Derek Brereton with Hawthorn, who was an Adidas athlete, and he wore the yellow boots because obviously Hawthorn colours. And
you mean to tell me he didn't wear white?
No, I don't think he was. No, I don't think he was game enough. Although
I think Sammy Newman was the white. I think
Sammy Newman was white. Yeah.
The yellow, gold, bright. I think Teddy.
Yeah, I think
Teddy
Sammy
pushed him.
Phil Carman wore white.
White, that's right.
Yeah.
I think Sammy
footballer.
Sammy Newman just wore what Ted gave him. That was it.
Yeah.
And Ted told him what to wear.
Speaking of Ted, you're talking about Ted Whitten.
Ted Whitten, yeah.
Okay.
Really great.
What was Teddy Whitten like?
He was fantastic. He was just it's just one of those.
Did he call you pansies?
Not really.
All the soccer players?
Well, yeah, he was always,
He used to tease
they're
me.
always,
Banter.
He teased me rotten.
It's a bit like the World Cup,
Great man.
with Neymar just rolling about. But he was one of these guys where it didn't matter who you were. You could have been, the main, because we were part of Pacific Dunlop. The general manager, Chuck, no problem. You could be just a normal type tea lady or whatever. He didn't treat you any differently.
No.
And that was
That made him
fantastic.
special.
One thing he didn't like was people not acknowledging him. You know, he always acknowledged people, but people walked past him and didn't.
Do you remember the handshake?
Handshake as well. There's one.
It was
There's
a
actually
great handshake.
yeah. There's a guy who actually I think he's over in Perth now. A guy called Brenton Hartfield, who's I think he's about 6'2" or 3. I think the first time he met him at the airport, and he obviously didn't realise the situation, and Ted had him on the ground. And so when you went in to shake Ted's hand, you knew you had to get in first to try and so.
Well, the late great Sammy. I'm just trying to think. My brain's gone mush at the moment. Had warned me. He said to me, whatever you do, if Teddy Whitten reaches out for your hand,
Brace yourself.
just apologise.
Yes.
Wave it away, or get in first and grip.
Exactly.
And of course, I said no worries. I said all understood. I came down for the Olympic telethon in '88.
Oh yeah.
And it was at Channel 10 at Nunawading. And as I walked in, Teddy Whitten has just walked in with Robert Domenico,
Oh, yeah.
and they've gone, "Hey, Donikian," and I've reached out, put my hand up, and just as my brain, sent my hand out to shake the great man's hand, I remembered the warning: do not shake Teddy Whitten's hand.
Yeah.
Too late.
No,
No.
he
He looked at me and treated me kindly.
He was a fabulous guy.
He was a fabulous guy. Speaking of fabulous guys, you went through Fitzroy/Heidelberg in a golden era.
Yep.
Internationals
Well,
falling off the bench. They
Yep.
were. You couldn't get in the car park for the tripping over internationals. And you'll have some mates like Jimmy Campbell, obviously, but you've played with some players. Who were your memorable
Cole.
favourites? Why? Who stood out to you?
at the Heidelberg
Yeah.
to the Fitzroy team. Well, I suppose Branko Bulovic, obviously he played
what a talent.
since 74 World Cup. He was just such a fantastic individual as far as skills is concerned. And he did have a ton of pace. I think he was probably was given the credit. That sort of thing.
Sharp up those first
Very,
couple of yards.
very, very quick, and obviously, as I mentioned before, Jimmy, Gary, Arthur McMillan. Obviously, late Arthur, fantastic individual. Jim O'Reilly, just wouldn't take any prisoners at the back, and obviously the Bannons, Pat.
Pat Bannon.
Yeah, Pat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pat probably should have got a tattoo on his forehead. Get back. That's all he used to do was get back.
Get
back.
back.
From forward. So
He was a great leader, though, wasn't he?
fantastic. And I think he was when I came. Obviously, I just 20. He was probably about 26, 27, 28. Because he had grey hair, everywhere you go, everybody thought he was a lot older than what he was, but he was.
Yeah, I get the
very-
same sort of
very good.
response too. People
But you're
treat me so
29
unkindly.
and not 28.
But no, he was a very good player.
Johnny Margaritas.
John Marguerite as well. I suppose, from my point of view, I've always said that when you come to Australia, you may come with reputations and so forth, and play with whatever, but you start from zero. And you come back when you come over here, and there's players that have come over with reputations and haven't made it, or haven't done so.
Many, plenty.
But the same thing with coaches. Coaches take two players and so forth. And I was probably fortunate that Margaritas or John took to me, and he thought I could do a job and so forth, and he stuck by me, which was great for me. I do remember, as I say, I went back in '79, came back in 1980, and I was going to a game, and obviously at the time Heidelberg were doing extremely well, Fitzroy were doing extremely well, so we were going to struggle to get back in the team. I went to, I think it was a double header down at Middle Park, and I remember Vince Bannon saying to me, by that stage John Margaritas was coaching Hellas, and Vince was quite adamant saying, well, John wants you to sign for Hellas. But obviously the club had done the right thing, brought me back out and so forth, and there's obviously a level of loyalty, but it could have been a different scenario if I'd actually signed.
Gee, wearing blue and white. How would you have coped with that?
Oh, well, we just
Your Greek's improved though over the years, hasn't it?
Tikanis, Skala,
Polikala.
Skociesi, Malu Alinika.
By the way, your Greek has got a lovely flair to it.
Thank you.
I
better than
hear,
mine.
speaking of flair, you do a great impersonation of Groucho Marx.
Oh, Groucho Marx. We'll try to Groucho Marx. I'm sure that's coming from.
Probably. But
Yeah,
apparently,
your
when you
hairdo,
had the
apparently your
hair.
hairdo, the great
Oh
afro.
yes. Oh yeah, the afro. Or even.
We should tell people that you had some afro do.
No, it wasn't an afro, it was a perm.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We
It was
can
a
confirm
Yeah,
it
it
was
was
a
a,
perm.
Wow.
the confirmed term. Yeah, as I say, I think I
You got a
mentioned.
Oh,
photo of that you can put up?
Of It's
Oh,
online.
there's-
I want to see it. It's just, I hear
plenty
it's
of photos there.
spectacular.
I've actually still got the hair in the bag somewhere. I think I mentioned one of the things on Facebook that.
Graham Hayes, the poison dwarf.
Yeah, or one of two.
Hey, they've all sat in that chair. You be very
I
careful.
know exactly. No, I must be respectful. He's there's the three Jimmies. Obviously, Jimmy Campbell, Jim O'Reilly, and Jimmy Tans are all trying to find the bag of hair. So, but anyway,
And could use it. Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
Speaking of coaches in Heidelberg, there comes a time when it's time to move on.
Yes.
And coaches have opinions of players.
Of course.
Who was the coach that sort of
Well,
showed you the door or
Showed
helped
the
you
door.
find
It
the
wasn't
door?
Lenny, was it?
No, well, Lenny had gone. He'd gone to Hellas, and I think he'd gone to Juventus and so forth. And it was actually a chap called Ken Morton who came in. I think
Kenny
it was
Morton.
83. I think 83. Yeah, it must have been
Yeah.
82, 83. Anyway, it was quite interesting because obviously I was surplus requirement at the club. I played like 120 or 30 games, whatever it was, and then I managed to get a trial at Adelaide City, which was I still can't believe how you've played 120 games in the National
And you have
League,
to try.
and you've got to go trial. But
Well, Vince Lear did it last year when he
Yeah.
left Wellington and went to Adelaide.
Adelaide, yeah.
Yeah, good
So-
boy.
so-
He showed his quality.
But the one thing I do remember about going to Adelaide is obviously the coach of Adelaide City at the time was a guy called Bobby Ferguson, who was a Scotland goalkeeper, and he was a coach over there. And I went there and we played a trial game against, I think it was Adelaide, Croatia. It was 35, 36 degrees, and as one of your previous guests, who not very good with his head as scoring goals, being a striker, I've scored 2 goals. And one of those goals was in Adelaide against Adelaide Croatia in a game, for Adelaide City. So, and also I think a game when I was probably about 14 or 15. So I've only scored 2 goals in my head. So I think maybe that's why
I think
got
he
there.
scored 2 goals with his head. We
Did he?
found some.
Gary Cole.
Gary Cole,
We found some
yeah.
proof
Sorry, I
today
should
on
mention
Twitter.
that.
Only 2 headers.
But we wanted
the
to put the
entire
myth.
repertoire of goals.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, he scored about 150, so you can
Yeah,
forgive him
yeah.
for
so Kenny Morton.
So he
was-
ran into the ball is basically what we're saying.
so-
the cheeky George.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry.
So Kenny Morton obviously was the person who. So from there, obviously, I went to Footscray, JUST,
Who was the coach there?
and the coach was Bobby McLaughlin.
Yep.
And I think Gus McLeod was still there, and then Gus left, and then Jamie came.
But he ended up
And
with a
then
bit of
Jim
Heidelberg old boys.
It was indeed, yeah. Jim Tansey came, and then from
Jamie Payton,
Jamie Payton was there, and
Jimmy O'Reilly.
Jim O'Reilly had
I'd already
there,
been.
and then I think he went. I think
George Cross.
that's
Yeah.
right, yeah. So I think what happened was that there for I think it was probably a year and a half, and then what happened was Peter Alton obviously had the Croydon job, and he got together the Dad's Army, which was
Well and truly Dad's Army.
Dad's Army. So myself and Jim Tansey I think was buy one get one for nothing, and so anyway we went there, and and what a fantastic time there. Again, we won the state league, so there was a bit of success there.
Tell me about Ojakov. Zhakov.
Well, players I've obviously played against. I was probably one of those players who I didn't really fear players, but obviously players had different reputations. And obviously we played Sydney City. You had Murray Barnes and Marconi, Tony Henderson, a lot of these good quality players. Preston obviously had Jacko
And big characters too.
and he was probably from a skill perspective and also just from a physique, he was just a strong individual. And I remember when we played him, and I think 15-20 minutes into the game, and I was quite aggressive toward him, basically tried to kick him, and he just looked at me, and I went, "Oh, I think I could be long dated."
It's not a good idea.
It's not a good idea. So, but from a skill point, he was just he had a lot of great vision. So was a very good player.
Who else like him stood out in that time for you as an opponent? Who was obviously he was one difficult opponent. Who else was as good or gave you as hard a time? Or who tried to kick you? Because you could play,
Well,
you just didn't kick people.
He just liked long range goals.
goals, yes.
You didn't mind
He
it.
loved the goals.
I do remember playing Sydney City, and I mentioned obviously somebody who's unfortunately passed away, Joe Watson,
Jinky.
and we played. I think I always remember the ball kind of broke halfway line, and I looked. I'm going into a tackle. He's coming into a tackle, and I'm looking to say, well, he's going this height. I've got to go higher.
Oh.
It was a bit so. It was a bit of a clash in the halfway line. So, but I look. There's been numerous players who have given you a hard time, and but again, as I say, I didn't have any fear of him. went out to do the best I could do. And as I say, I was fortunate at Heidelberg especially that, you know, obviously the fans, you know, people took to me and gave me more encouragement to just continue what I was doing.
Kenny Taylor is our pioneer on Football Nation Radio, G1 and G2, doing the inquest. The thing that interests me greatly is, during that time, were there any referees that you actually enjoyed playing under? Because we hear so many people complaining about the refereeing. There were great characters in that day, and they handled you a bit differently.
Yeah, well, no, obviously Chris Brambridge was I think the referees, they're not too, obviously because they don't play now, but then, you know, they just gave as good as you gave, sort of thing. So there's a good leveler to a certain extent, you know, and obviously, you know, Chris Brambridge, John Fraser, there's a few others that I remember off the top of my head.
Our good friend
Jared Conley, yeah. So they just they enjoyed as much as we enjoyed playing the game, and obviously some of the interesting comments would come back, like, you know, you'd have a go at the referee and they'd be saying, no, you're actually playing a bad game as well, so I don't think you should comment. You should just keep quiet.
You never ran into Tony Boscovich, did you, in your travels?
I'm sure I did.
I'm sure you did.
In early days you would have.
Yeah, would have.
Because you would have told the stories.
Yeah. All as I say, they're all part and parcel of the game now, and they have to be. And I think they'll try to, you know, reach as heights like players try to do. The players try to play for their national teams. You know, they're trying to play. You know, trying to beat the World Cup and referee at the highest level. So it's very, very similar.
Any highlights in terms of games, matches that still resonate in your mind that you played in, and you either scored a cracking goal?
Well,
why were you such a good shot from range?
Well, one game I was just thinking of things about today. One game I always remember was playing at Wentworth in Sydney, the dog track.
Wentworth Park, yes, which was my home track.
And it was 1979. Obviously, as I said before, Baba had gone home, also with my son Andrew, and I was left here. And at that time, I just wanted to go back home, just back to Scotland. That was it. And I vividly remember playing Sydney City. Todd Clark was in goals, and it was I think it was 10th or 15th minute, whatever it was, and the ball's come out to the edge of the box, and I've just hit it right in the top corner, and obviously there's elation by all the players, and I'm just going, oh, I'm going to be here for another 4 or 5 weeks, you know, which is it's not the right way, because obviously I wanted to get back with my family. So but anyway, it was that game. I suppose the Hellas game. Every time I seem to be on any sort of kind of chat thing, it's, you know, Hellas comes up quite a bit. I think the 5-2 game at Olympic Park was probably one of the highlights, especially because from a bonus perspective, you know, they've come in and said $200 a goal. Well, all of a sudden it's 4-0 at half time. She's happy days, boys.
Well, the Olympic Park game ended up 5-2, right?
Keep it 5-2, yeah, keep it going. And obviously Jack Riley was in goal, so it was 5.
That was a memorable one. I can
game,
remember that one like it was yesterday.
But you know, there's a lot of different games. Even
a winger, that's short attention span. What can I tell you?
Great. We don't want to forget. We want to mention the grandkids, the family.
Yes,
and the
I must.
grandkids,
I can't
because they're all
forget
listening.
them. Yes, I was telling George prior to the programme. Obviously, I've got 5 grandkids, and I will mention them as Rian, Amira, Ethan. That's Andrew and Manny's, and Stephen and Jesse's Jared and Emmett. So anyway, I spoke to Andrew. I think it was about a week and a half ago, and because obviously they think, oh, Papa's a golfer.
He watches a lot of golf.
Yeah, well, I do watch a lot of golf, and I like to play a lot of golf, but I tend to come in when we're watching cartoons, and I always say, right, just turn the cartoons off, and Papa put the golf on. No, don't put the golf on. Anyway, my phone, Andrew contacted me, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, and I said, what the kids doing? He says, they're watching you on YouTube. And I've gone, sorry? He goes, obviously, what they've done, they've gone to YouTube, and they've actually got the game, the Hellas Heidelberg game at Olympic Village, the 2-0 game, and they're watching. It's Papa there. So there is obviously evidence that actually did play. Yeah, Papa played. So
King Kenny.
King Kenny, yes.
Yeah. Well, after that, did they treat you any differently, Grandpa?
No. They just want to know what's in the fridge.
All right, now,
no Kentucky Fried Chicken.
No, exactly.
So we try and be careful about what we speak off air,
yep, and
what we bring in here.
Yep.
All right, and we want to be careful, but there's a little story, and it ends up with, I think your description was a smashed glass door and a figure like that's a cartoon, like a body.
That's not Kenny
right?
Taylor.
No, it wasn't Kenny. No. But Kenny was at the Majestic in Fitzroy Street.
I just arrived. I'll try and make this. People obviously know me, have heard the story before. And what happened was I've obviously gone back to the hotel, into the room, think it was a Friday night. Anyway, phone goes in the room and answered the phone, and the girl at the reception said, "Oh, there's a Peter Blasby downstairs here for you." And I've gone, "Okay, oh, yeah, okay." So I've come downstairs, and I've come downstairs, and there's Peter, and he's trying to be. When you get in that state where you obviously think you're
Trying to stand up,
well, you're not drunk, but you're actually drunk and trying to be.
You're inebriated.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're trying to be coherent. Anyway, what happened was that, and I looked outside and I could see, obviously one of his mates, and obviously he'd been in like a box do or something. One of his mates had a slab of beer on his shoulder. So obviously what they wanted to do was come into the hotel and utilise the room I was staying in. So I kind of tried to kind of fob Peter off, sort of thing. Anyway, I've gone back upstairs. Look, no, don't worry about it. I've gone back upstairs. Somehow the phone was off the hook. Next thing I could hear somebody shouting, "Mr. Taylor, Mr. Taylor." And all that. Anyway, I answered the phone, and I've gone downstairs, and then, as I said to George, if you look at the plate glass door, it was like a cartoon character, as if somebody's outline had just got out the door. Obviously Peter had just thought, "Oh, I had enough of this," and gone, and not realising the door was closed, and gone through. So
Did he make a mess of himself?
Well, I don't think he did. No, I think he was pretty fortunate. But obviously, there's
Goalkeepers.
a bit of blood stain going through the floor, through the door. But obviously, the CIB get called in, and I tried to just plead ignorance. So to say, "Look, I've just arrived in the country. Don't really know the guy." Da. So
If you want to know any more on ADIDAS. By the way, we should tell that story of ADIDAS and Puma and
Yes.
the brothers.
The brothers, that's right, Ralph and ADIDAS. They fell out. I think I'm not sure exactly what they.
If you want to know how a
disagreement.
sports a giant came to be,
That's right, yeah.
Kenny Taylor will tell us right.
1948 it was. I think the village. I can't even pronounce the actual where the village is in Germany, but they've got their factories are at one end of the village, and obviously Ralph split away and he formed Puma, and obviously ADIDAS obviously came from his particular name, and Kath. I think I think she came over. Obviously he passed away, but he obviously was just an individual who just wanted to make custom-made boots for players, and obviously very involved with the German team, which obviously ADIDAS is still very strong with. And obviously the Three Stripes is actually, that's what the Three Stripes evolved from. But yeah, the brothers just had the big disagreement, and you've now got two conglomerates.
Two massive giants.
Yeah, exactly.
And doing some fabulous sport.
Yeah.
And Puma is back in a big way.
Oh yeah.
And ADIDAS, of course, has gone right in the most exciting fashion possible and grabbed a former Nike boy called Cristiano Ronaldo.
That's right.
And tried to turn him to ADIDAS, to the dark side.
Exactly.
While we educate on this program,
Yeah,
speaking of ADIDAS, those who played around 83, 84, 85 and would have worn the old wedge boots.
Oh yes.
Remember the wedge boots?
Yeah.
Right? And if you try and Google the wedge boot, you won't find any pictures, you won't find any stories, because that boot was manufactured in
Ringwood.
Right? It's an ADIDAS wedge, and I wore them, and I think they're the best boots ever, and I've looked for them ever since.
And
For those,
why did they stop making them?
Because obviously stopped manufacturing in Australia. And what actually happened was that because brands like Reebok became very prominent, and obviously the soft white leather came from Korea and so forth, and very inexpensive. And stores just didn't want locally produced product, which is
bring
quite
back
sad.
the wedge.
Bring
also.
back the
Bring
wedge.
back the
We
wedge.
should get a petition going.
The campaign starts on the Pioneers, and under the initiative and under the guidance of King Kenny Taylor, we're going to try and
We will,
bring
and
the
if
wedge back.
you had the wedge and you wore the wedge when you were a kid and you're in my era or a little bit older, tweet or get on Facebook and let us know, because we want to bring back the wedge. I
Yes.
reckon.
And we've got to go. But thank you, Kenny, for being
Fantastic.
fantastic and giving us not only a little time to find out a bit more about the legend, but to also understand what made Grandpa so very special on the football field. Who's coming up next week?
Surprise, Georgie.
Oh dear. Ken Taylor,
Thank you.
Please give Barbara our best.
Shall do.
And to the grandchildren, please listen to Grandpa.
Thank you. Thanks for asking me in. I've just really enjoyed it.
Good on you, Kenny.
Thank you.
Cheers, buddy.
Cheers.
Thank you.
FNR, Football Nation Radio.
Puts the others. No call. Score!
Salamidi for Cole. Cole on the run. Shoots. 2-0.
Lazanovsky with the free kick. Launches a rocket. Trimboli. What vision! Blasts.
Yes! That's it! Wiljevic. Beautiful ball.
Here's Bozanic. They haven't. They might have won it.
Pioneers with George Donikian and George Kotzanis on FNR, Football Nation Radio.